The more you know about the moon, the more far out and amazing it gets, and the less you really know.
We were never able to see stars from the lunar surface or on the daylight side of the moon by eye without looking through the optics.
I don't remember seeing any.
The moon is an artificial spaceship. The moon is not 4.4 billion years old, but has only been in orbit around our planet for 20,000 years or 100,000 years.
There was something out there that was close enough to be observed, and what could it be?
This is Apollo Saturn Launch Control, T-minus 3 hours, 4 minutes, 32 seconds, and counting.
It's one small step for man, one giant leap for mankind.
The moon is over 238,000 miles away. Temperatures can swing by hundreds of degrees, lunar dust can destroy equipment, and every mission carries enormous risks and cost. In fact, some of the biggest challenges NASA faced during Apollo are still causing problems today. And that's just the beginning. From deadly radiation and engineering nightmares to the real reasons moon missions became so difficult, we're uncovering why humanity's return to the moon has taken so long and why getting back may be even harder than getting there the first time. To understand why we left, you have to get why we went in the first place. The Apollo program was never really about pure science. It was a battle in the Cold War, a high-stakes chess match between the United States and the Soviet Union. Every satellite, every spacewalk was a power move. Getting to the moon was the ultimate flex, like we did it. The laser focus gave NASA something it's never had since: total political backing and a mind-blowing budget. At its peak in the mid-60s, NASA's budget was over 4% of all federal spending. Today, it's less than 0.5%. That fire hose of money and a nation united by the fear of falling behind made the impossible happen. The Apollo program was a war project with a single goal: plant a flag on the moon before the Soviets. It was a race, and America was going to win no matter the cost. The pressure was insane. The timeline was absurd, but the country was all in. Thousands of engineers and scientists worked 24/7. This wasn't just about exploration. It was about proving their way of life was superior. The goal was never to build, a highway to the stars. It was to win a sprint to a single spectacular destination. And on July 20th, 1969, they did it. One small step for man, one giant leap for mankind. With those words, the race was over. The US had won. Right there, in that moment of absolute victory, the countdown to Apollo's death actually began. The program's biggest success made it obsolete. Almost overnight, the political will that pushed NASA to the moon kind of trailed off. The Soviet threat was neutralized, at least in the eyes of the world, and the urgency was just gone. Public interest, which had been in a fever pitch, started to drop off. The later Apollo missions, which were scientifically priceless, were seen by Washington as expensive reruns of a show they'd already seen. That led to the program's great betrayal. While astronauts were still walking on the moon, the politicians back home were pulling the plug. NASA had huge plans for what came next: longer moon missions, a permanent lunar base, trips to Mars. Congress was staring down the rising costs of the Vietnam War and problems at home, so it canceled missions 18, 19, and 20. And hardware for those missions was already being built. Some of it was later repurposed for the Skylab space station, but the dream of a moon base was over. It wasn't a technical problem or like a loss of courage, it was a political and financial decision. The Apollo program was this magnificent machine built for one purpose, and once it did its job, the machine was switched off, leaving the dreamers who saw the moon as a new frontier completely heartbroken. After the political betrayal came the financial execution. After peaking in the 60s, NASA's budget was slashed, and that fire hose of funding was reduced to more of a trickle. Without the cash, there was just no way to keep a moon program going. The country's priorities had changed. The focus shifted to Vietnam, and social programs at home. In this new world, going to the moon was seen as a luxury they just couldn't afford. The political will was gone, and so was the money. Instead of the moon, NASA was given a new, more practical goal: the space shuttle. The shuttle was sold as a reusable space truck that would make getting to low Earth orbit cheap and routine. 2015. This pivot to a new project effectively grounded human exploration beyond our own backyard for an entire generation. A devastating side effect of this shutdown was the loss of knowledge. The specialized expertise needed to send people to the moon wasn't something you could just look up. As the Apollo-era engineers retired or moved on, their hands-on experience went with them. So NASA didn't just lose its lunar hardware, it lost a huge chunk of the human brain power that knew how to build and fly it. People always ask, if we did it in the 60s with computers weaker than a smartphone, why is it so hard now? And the simple answer is, we're not trying to do the same thing. We're trying to do something much, much harder. The Artemis program, NASA's plan to return to the moon, is not Apollo 2.0. Apollo was about flags, footprints, a series of sprints to prove that America could do it. Artemis is about sustainability. It's about building a permanent human outpost on and around the moon. And that is a completely different and way more complex challenge. This means we need a whole new generation of hardware. The Giant Space Launch System, or SLS, rocket, the Orion crew capsule, brand new spacesuits, and privately built landers are all being developed from scratch. Unlike Apollo, which had a blank check, Artemis faces modern problems. Lawsuits between contractors, supply chain nightmares, and a Congress that fights over every dollar. NASA officials even admitted the original goal of a 2024 landing was driven more by politics than what was technically possible at the time. Simply put, Apollo had one clear mission. Artemis has a much bigger one, with a budget it has to fight for every single year. But the challenges here on Earth are being met with some amazing new discoveries on the moon itself. For decades, we thought the moon was just a dead, dusty rock, but recent missions have found evidence that it could be hiding this secret underworld. Our newest robotic explorers have spotted signs of massive underground lava tubes. Scientists believe these huge caves, formed by ancient volcanoes, could offer shelter for future astronauts. They could protect them from deadly radiation, micrometeorite strike, and the insane temperature swings on the surface. So suddenly the moon is not just a place to visit, it's a place that we could actually potentially stay. These underground structures have become a major new target for exploration, offering a solution to one of the biggest problems of living off-world. So, the idea that NASA won't go back to the moon is wrong. The reality is NASA is fighting to go back. The uncrewed Artemis 1 test flight was a huge success, sending a capsule farther than any human-rated spacecraft has ever gone. Recent plans to show Artemis 3 as a test of new commercial landing systems in Earth orbit, currently planned for 2027. This would pave the way for Artemis 4, which is currently targeted to be the first landing mission of the program in 2028. The ultimate goal now is not just to land, but to build a sustainable program with plans for a lunar base and then yearly missions. For over 50 years, our absence from the moon was not a failure of technology, it was driven by politics and money. The challenge today is not just about beating physics, it's about rebuilding political support and getting that steady funding needed to make it happen.
In the 1930s, miners working pyrophyllite deposits near Ottosdal, South Africa, began pulling something out of the rock that should not have been there. Small, metallic spheres. Some barely half a centimetre across, others the size of a cricket ball. Many were almost perfectly round, and many bore something that stopped the miners cold. Crisp, parallel grooves running around the equator of each sphere like the seam on a manufactured ball. The rock encasing these objects was 3 billion years old. 3 billion. That is not a rounding error. That is Precambrian rock, formed before multicellular life existed on this planet, before oxygen filled the atmosphere, before the first organism with a nucleus appeared in the fossil record. And embedded inside it were smooth, grooved metallic spheres that looked for all the world as though someone had made them. Here is the question. If the rock is 3 billion years old and the spheres are inside the rock, then whatever put them there was present on this planet, before anything we would recognize as life had even begun. The objects became known as the Klerksdorp spheres, named after the nearest town in what is now the northwest province of South Africa. Pyrophyllite is a soft aluminium silicate used in industrial ceramics. It forms in sedimentary deposits over immense geological time. The miners were cutting through these ancient formations when they began encountering the spheres in situ, not scattered on the surface, not dropped into crevices, but fully encased within the rock itself. The spheres ranged from roughly half a centimetre to 10 centimetres in diameter. Some were nearly perfect spheres, others were slightly compressed into disc or oblate shapes. Their surfaces varied, some smooth and metallic, others marked by those striking equatorial grooves. Parallel ridges so regular and evenly spaced, they appeared incised rather than formed by any natural process. The miners collected them, local museums acquired them, and for decades the spheres sat in display cases as geological curiosities, objects that generated more questions than answers. Geologists who studied the spheres offered a detailed natural explanation. The objects are composed primarily of hematite, iron oxide, sometimes mixed with wollastonite or pyrite. Their internal structure reveals radial growth patterns expanding outward from a central point, consistent with mineral concretion, a process where dissolved minerals precipitate around a nucleus over millions of years inside sedimentary rock. The equatorial grooves, according to this model, formed as layers of fine sediment compressed around the growing concretion during its formation in an ancient lakebed. Metamorphic foliation, pressure from surrounding rock, creating planar features in the mineral structure, produced the parallel ridges as the formation compacted over geological time. This is a documented geological phenomenon. Spherical concretions have been found in Precambrian formations worldwide. The Klerksdorp spheres are not unique in their existence, they are unique in their precision. And for a significant number of observers, the geological explanation, however technically sound, does not account for what they see with their own eyes. Not all the spheres show the expected variation of natural concretion. Some display a degree of sphericity and surface regularity that appears to exceed what random geological processes reliably produce. The equatorial grooves on certain specimens are not rough, irregular furrows consistent with uneven compaction. They are sharp, parallel, evenly spaced. They look machined. Paul Heinrich, a geologist who published a detailed analysis of the Otto-Stahl objects, examined the claim that the spheres were perfectly balanced and demonstrated that most are not true spheres. They range from slightly oblate to markedly disc-shaped. His explanation is geologically sound, but his own photographs show specimens where the grooves are remarkably uniform, and no amount of geological terminology has been able to override what people see when they hold one in their hands. The gap between the scientific explanation and what the spheres appear to be is where the controversy lives, and it has never closed. At some point, a story began circulating that someone brought one of the Klerksdorp spheres to NASA for analysis. According to this account, NASA engineers declared the sphere's balance too perfect to be naturally formed, that it could only have been manufactured in zero-gravity conditions, that it was, in effect, an impossible object. This story has been repeated in documentaries, articles and videos for decades. No NASA report exists, no official statement, no named researcher, no documentation of any kind. But the story persists because it gives narrative form to a genuine problem. The spheres look manufactured. The natural explanation, while scientifically supported, struggles to satisfy the visual evidence that people find so compelling. The Klerksdorp Museum's own curator, Roelf Marx, was quoted in multiple sources, describing them as objects that appeared to have been made by hands. informal comments never published. But they reflect the persistent intuition that something about these objects exceeds what geology alone can comfortably explain. The Klerksdorp spheres present a more unsettling possibility than either the mainstream or alternative accounts typically acknowledge. If they are natural, and the geological evidence strongly suggests they are, then the process that formed them produced objects of such apparent precision that trained geologists have had to publish peer-reviewed papers explaining why they are not manufactured. That is a remarkable statement about the natural world. It means that over 3 billion years, under conditions no human was present to observe, geological processes generated objects that fool the human eye into perceiving intentional design. But if even one of them is not natural, if even one specimen exceeds the tolerances that concretion and metamorphic foliation can produce, then the implications are not simply unusual, they are incompatible with the entire established timeline of life and intelligence on this planet. The spheres do not need to be alien. They do not need to be evidence of a lost civilization. They need only be what they appear to be, objects embedded in 3 billion-year-old rock whose precision the current natural explanation does not fully account for. That single gap between what geology can explain and what the spheres appear to be is enough. The Klerksdorp spheres are not a hoax, they are not a forgery, they are real objects sitting in museum collections right now, available for anyone to examine. They are still asking the same question they asked the day the first miner cracked open that pyrophyllite and found something inside that looked like it had been made by hands that did not yet exist. The answer may be geological, but the question is permanent. Subscribe, because the deeper you dig, the less the ground behaves like it should.